Not only did we find sex offenders who went undetected until we stepped in, we also discovered some are now on the run. In September, people looking for convicted sex offender Jonathan Bauer wouldn't think they'd have to look hard to find him. The Maryland Sex Offender Registry said he was in jail, but it was wrong.
I've been home. I haven't been locked up.
Got it. For how long, you think? Weeks, months?
Oh, months. Yeah.
Bauer has been at this house in Glen Burnie since records show he was released from the Anne Arundel County Detention Center in May. But that jail is exactly where the state's sex offender registry said he was still living 3.5 months later.
It's wrong information. I've been home.
Bauer is just one of many sex offenders we found on the streets and undetected on the registry you rely on.
You've got to keep your eye on them.
Pat Parrish does. She checks the state registry twice a week and even used it to identify and turn in a sex offender she saw taking a boy into the woods by her home. As Pat scrolls through the pictures, she says she only takes comfort when she spots one word next to an offender: incarcerated.
This person's in jail, so we don't have to worry about them.
But ABC2 investigators found reason to worry, finding dozens of sex offenders whose registry pages were wrong about where they lived. Some listed as behind bars, when we discovered they'd actually been out of jail for weeks or months. Like Christopher Hawkins, convicted of a third-degree sex offense. He was supposed to be in the Prince George's County Detention Center, but multiple records showed he was out. And Antonio Edwards, a convicted rapist who will be on the registry for life. He was listed in the Baltimore County Jail, but we found he was on the street after being released in July. Edwards is a lost inmate that still hasn't been found. There's a warrant for his arrest, with the registry labeling him as an absconder.
The errors that you've uncovered here, which, we're grateful that you've found those, because that's really a problem.
A problem we discovered by putting a sampling of Maryland's 1,500 incarcerated offenders through various government databases. The state's registry may have them listed as being in jail, but we use the Maryland Inmate Locator, Case Search, a victim notification service called Vine, even picking up the phone to call detention centers they were supposed to be in, only to find out they'd been out for a while.
When we tell the public that here's information about where these sex offenders are, that information should be correct. And it's really appalling that it's not.
There's clearly a failure in the system.
Advocates from the Maryland Coalition Against Sexual Assault and the Maryland Crime Victims Resource Center say the failure to give victims and the public current and correct information about offenders puts people at risk.
If this is a person who has harmed you, they may want retribution. They may want to re-victimize you. So you need to know that they are out on the street.
I don't understand why this is happening. These are people who are in state custody. We should know where they are.
In our sample, 20% of the inmates we found who were actually out had been in state facilities, so it wouldn't have been tough to update the registry. But the Department of Corrections didn't know about those releases until we told them. They say it was human error. But still, even more offenders were let go from local detention centers like this one. They want to know ultimately who's responsible for that.
And ultimately, it is the facility.
Elizabeth Bartholomew runs the Sex Offender Registry on behalf of the state's Department of Corrections. We've blurred her face for safety reasons. But she says, bottom line, by law, the offender and the facility that houses them should notify the registry about a release. But that doesn't always happen.
Periodically, there are people that get missed, and the reasons why they get missed are myriad.
One big reason, according to Bartholomew, is the state and local databases that track inmates from the courts to the jail to the registry itself all speak different languages.
The things that need to happen are linkages between databases.
Because right now, when an offender walks out of a jail or state prison, those different databases don't all automatically update, although the state is using federal funding to modify the system and bring everyone on the same page. The goal is preventing mistakes like the ones we found from appearing on a registry that falls under the state banner.
You feel like the buck stops with you?
Yes, absolutely. The registry is my responsibility, and I take it very personally.
And so does Pat Parrish, the woman who spends her days in retirement trolling the registry. If the state falls down on the job tracking the man she helped put behind bars, she'll be watching.
If he gets out, I'll know he's out. I'll be on him like white on rice.
Now, Baltimore County tells us that even though they registered Antonio Edwards and followed a state-approved practice that they thought met requirements, based on what we found, starting today, automatic notifications are going to go out whenever a sex offender is released from their custody. Now, the Anne Arundel County Detention Center says they faxed the state notification about Jonathan Bauer on the day he was set free. The superintendent there says there is room for improvement in this entire system, and he wants to be part of the team to find a fail-safe solution.